Hello everyone, this is Alexandre from Gains, and today I am joined by Humayun from Fetch.ai. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, and thanks for inviting us. Thanks
It's a
for inviting.
pleasure. We have a lot to cover today, and I'm actually really excited about AI. But first of all, I'd like to know a bit more about yourself. What did you do before crypto? What made you come into crypto? And where did the idea for Fetch came?
So before Fetch, my background is computer science, but I've spent most of my life doing commercialization, either of technology or building different types of businesses, or several of them is commodity trading. And I was developing with a team collect kind of algorithms for trading commodities, trying to get data for different commodities from different regions, countries, putting it together and trying to build algorithms which can trade commodities efficiently. So that's that. And then I was also involved with a project called DeepMind, which sold out to Google, which is one of the most leading artificial general intelligence company. I was partly responsible for looking after the commercialization of the technology in terms of bringing real use cases to AI.
For people who don't know, DeepMind is one of the best AI companies that exists. It's actually very exciting. There's a cool documentary called AlphaGo that you can watch on Netflix and other websites, I'm sure. And it shows how they were able to beat the best players in the world. We're touching something new, right? Like beating humans just when computers starting beating humans at chess. And sometimes computers can actually find really innovative moves, kind of like intuitive moves or even counterintuitive. It's a field that's really interesting.
It's a very, very interesting field, and it will have a huge impact on the business, on the world, on how we operate.
When did you learn about crypto and what's Fetch?
It's not about crypto, it's about decentralization that we are interested in. And why are we interested in it is because if you look at what we're building and why we're building it, we're building a multi-agent framework. Now, what a multi-agent framework means is you have different stakeholders with different incentives, and you bring them all together, and you align their incentives or put processes in place where they can't cheat each other and they can automatically align incentives. And if you look around, I think one of the best examples of that is blockchain, where you can actually bring multiple parties who have different objectives, who have different incentives, but they all come together to kind of make the network run. And that's what attracted us to it. So what Fetch had started building was a multi-agent system. So what kind of multi-agent system? We started looking at something very basic, which is how do you deploy a kind of a multi-agent based drone system, which is multiple drones who autonomously operate and then liaise with each other. So that's how we started. That's what we started building. But then it became very clear that it's the implication of multi-agent system is far-reaching. So you can apply it to many other places. And we then started looking for creating that fabric which connects all these agents together. So you could create a software agent, you can give it some autonomy, you can give it some decision power. But in isolation, it can't achieve much. So what you need to then do is you need to connect it to other agents. So it's like saying before Google came to the scene, how did all the websites, how were they found? And it was very difficult to find them. So now you can launch multiple agents, but how do you find them? How do you connect with them? And that's what we're doing. So we're kind of saying take the economy to the next level and think about autonomous agents doing different things. How do you connect them? How do you find them? So we're kind of doing a Google like job for agents.
What can agents be, like devices, sensors? Can you give us like a concrete example?
So agents don't have to be as such devices, but they can represent devices. They can represent your financial interest. They can represent data. They can represent whatever you like. What you have to understand is that they can represent anything, but the question is, what are they doing with it? And you can decide, or the stakeholder can decide what the agents do. So I can give you another example in the crypto space. So for example, if you think about oracles are effectively agents, which is you ask them or they give you a price. You could make them a bit more intelligent because they can say, okay, well, we're running this consensus in the background. We see some irregularity in some kind of data, and then they can adapt to that and they can provide you a better information. So that's another example of a agent. In a more real world scenario, if you think about a travel agent, for example, so a travel agent is a human travel agent. It takes your requirements, it captures your requirements, and it goes out and finds you whatever you require in your travel. If you replace that human with a software, that's an agent. That's the kind of agents which we are looking to build, which can take your preferences, which can take what you want from them, and they can then actively and autonomously do tasks for you.
I also read on your website that you're looking to have agents to facilitate like vehicle transportation and autonomous driving.
If you look at a car, the car is an agent. It's driving, but the problem we have is okay, all the Teslas can speak to each other perhaps because there's a Tesla net, and all the Toyotas can speak to each other as well. But the problem is, how do you get all of them to speak to all of them? How does a Tesla speak to a Toyota or a Honda? And how does it speak to a sign on the side of the road? How does it speak to a cyclist who is about to be coming around the corner? And that's the problem we're looking to solve. If you provide the fabric where all these agents can connect with each other, they can find each other, then they can be a lot more useful. They're becoming more and more intelligent. But if you look at what Tesla does, it looks at the road in front, or any autonomous car does, it looks at the road front, it detects different things, just like humans do, and it reacts to it. But what about making it better? Because it's autonomous, it's perhaps sometimes won't react as a human would. What about giving them that extra knowledge of what's happening, what they can't see? And that's really where our system comes in play. How do you get a car to speak to a car which you can't see? How can you connect to it? That's where it's a kind of a game changer in a way autonomous cars drive today.
So that's like a very concrete example and a great vision to have maybe in 10 years all the cars that would be speaking to each other and just self-driving. How do you go? Do you just go to Tesla and Toyota and all other car manufacturers that have self-driving cars and try to tell them we'd like all of your cars to speak to each other, use Fetch? How do you do that?
It's about raising awareness, and we have now built a operational system where you can do such things and we can trial such things. And now it's about doing some trials. So we were part of Mobi, we were T IOTA organization. So all we're doing is we're showing now different use cases of it. And what would happen is really once all of this kind of starts to evolve, then people will see the usage of such a network where you need to see more than just what is visible. So, machine vision, machine recognition, that's all fine. You need a little bit more than that for the machines to react in the right way. And as the awareness increases and as the technology increases, the technology improves, there will come a point where this will become essential. So the way we are dealing with it is we're finding partnerships with small companies who are doing autonomous driving tests, or bigger companies who want to kind of get into it and trying to build this ability for them to connect with each other.
So a quick word on the security side of things, because obviously it's very obvious with the cars, if someone are able to tamper with data, they could crash massive accidents, or with the example you had earlier with oracles, that could lead to market crashes. So how do you make sure there's no such thing happening?
As Fetch, that's not a problem we need to worry about because we're not the one controlling the car. We're just providing the car information which it didn't have today, right? And there is no necessity for that car to either act or not act on it. So that's just an enhancement technique, which if you've driven Tesla, we did some trials with it, and you'll see that it will be going along and it can't see anything. As soon as it sees it, it starts to break very quickly. I think that's the kind of things we can improve, which is even if you're not seeing the car, you know the car is there. You, like a human, you wouldn't just completely break very quickly. You'll gently break. So we are providing some enhancement techniques. You could do more with it because now you have enhancement techniques. You can see a traffic jam miles ahead, where even Google's traffic maps is slower. You could improve the speed of it. We're providing technology which can enhance things. So we're not providing critical technology which crashes or not crashes the car. We're leaving that to the experts in terms of the autonomous driving cars. And what that does is it takes away some of the risk as well, because that's quite an expensive thing to do. And I think we don't want to be in that. We just want our agents to help these cars improve. We try and avoid that kind of very critical scenarios. But on the other side, I agree, data is meant to be kept secret, and it shouldn't be passed on to everybody. And that's absolutely Fetch's key proposition, which is that data should not leave you. You should be able to represent it in a different form, which people can't steal. And that's really how the agents work. You don't pass the data on to anybody to process. You pass a prediction, an actionable prediction on. So the agent actually just says, okay, I'm here, slow down. It's not telling you who I am, all of those details. It's a bit more predictive, actionable prediction rather than data.
So, how many of these agents are currently in the Fetch network?
It obviously goes on and off because there's a few people, a few companies, and a few partners doing plenty of trials. We have touched roughly 500,000 agents, and then it varies between 2 to 300,000 to a 500,000 agents, and different test nets, not just one test net, because different test nets are used for different reasons. These agents, don't forget, I mean, they don't have to continuously live because that's very costly. They come up, they evolve, they do their task, and then they disappear. So at any one time, if this whole system gets up and running, there could be billions of agents. At the moment, we are playing with small number, and it's roughly 500,000. We have this hospitality project which is going to come off ramp in the next couple of months. We expect to see a marked increase after that. So we're probably looking at million plus agents at any one time.
What's your focus right now? Are you trying to get more agents in the network? Are you trying to make your AI prediction better?
Our focus is to actually find solutions which an industry can use. It's not about we can do 100,000 transactions per second. It's about who's actually doing them. Do you actually need, does your network actually needs it? We're probably taking a bit different approach in the sense that we look at Ethereum, for example, and we think, look at the gas costs, look at the transaction speeds. It's all rubbish. It's not great. Yet everything DeFi is happening on Ethereum. There's plenty of other chains. We want to get in the market with a right commercial solution. We're not competing on just numbers. We can do 1 million transactions per second. Okay, but who's doing it? What are they doing it for? So that's not our focus. Our focus is to provide something of value to the market.
Regarding the performance, I'm assuming your network is ready to scale because, of course, there might have a need at some point in time for a lot of transactions, and especially they might need to be confirmed fast, right?
Yes and no. So if you think about what we're attempting to deliver, it's not just about our chain. Our chain can run the agents, but it's about interoperability because somebody might want to use an agent, our agent, to do something else on a different chain. So we're focusing on interoperability. We're saying you can do transactions on multiple chains, and the agents can enable that. Yes, the agents can settle, but we can only settle at the rate which other chains can settle. If one transaction is coming from Ethereum, we might be million transactions a second. If Ethereum is the one which is dictating the settlement time, then we can't do anything. And the key is that it's not beneficial unless you are interoperable.
What do you think of DeFi right now? Like, do you think it's just total craziness or?
I think DeFi has a lot of potential, and I think DeFi will get better and better. But at the moment, I think there's this whole craze of let's just talk about DeFi because we have a yield and we can do yield farming. That craze is probably going to disappear soon. Some other craze will come along. And again, the problem is, where is the real use case? Yes, we have some use case with crypto trading, with margin trading, and you require some lending and borrowing based on your margins, and you require some borrowing based on your assets. But the demand is overinflated. It's not as much as people make it out to be. You don't need, there is a limited amount. A lot of these schemes are pyramid schemes, really. And I think that's the danger, because it will get a bad name and it will get a bad reputation. And we saw that in the last, within the last 2-3 weeks, we have seen that with projects like Sushi, which I think could have been a very useful and probably is in the background useful, but it got a bad name because of the way it was done.
Right. So you guys are not looking to jump onto DeFi bandwagon. You just keep your heads down, building, doing some real stuff.
When we did the IO, since then, we've always said we will be launching a commodities exchange based, tokenized and decentralized commodities exchange. It kind of fits a little bit in the DeFi space, but it has very real world use case, which is people who are trading commodities, which is trillions of dollars worth of industry. We're bringing that closer to crypto. So what we're saying is MetalX, which is the commodities DEX we are building. We announced it, we're launching a beta in October. We're doing more trials with real world traders. It's going to be projects like that which bring real applications to crypto, which is what DeFi needs right now. And I think, again, I'd say we don't want to jump on the bandwagon. However, we already are in that bandwagon, if you think about it, because we've been building this for the last 12 months or something. And we've been trying to get the commodity traders on board, which is not going to be easy, of course, because they're not used to crypto style trading. They're not used to DEX. I mean, nobody's used to DEX yet, apart from the people who are in the DeFi space. We're bringing real commercial applications. That's really the key here.
Just to keep on going on the deep crypto side, you do have an ERC20 token. Most of the transactions, they're going to happen on the native Fetch blockchain for performance issues, right? You also mentioned that you will be interoperable, and you will of course settle the transactions depending on the speed of the slower chain. So what's the token use case actually?
Let me just clear something. So you have an ERC20 token. It's a standard token. Everybody knows it. Exchanges know it. People know it. You can look at it. You know what it is. Whereas ERC20 token exists, the way we operate and the way many others would probably operate is you put it, you lock it up, and you can get your own native token as well to operate with. So unless you have the ERC20, you can't get the native. So you need that bridge. We could just remove the ERC20 and just have the local token, but what we feel is that we need that interoperability. It gives us an edge in the sense that ERC20 is the most used tokens. So we're leaving that there. We are saying then you can have multiple chains which could be doing different tasks. You can have one chain which could be doing multiple tasks. That doesn't matter, and gives you that freedom that you can still be listed with one token on the exchanges, and you can do different trials with different token styles on the Fetch native exchanges. That's really why we've kept it that way. And the use case is, so if you think about all the costs which are incurred in running an agent, building an agent, just to deploy an agent, that's all paid in Fetch. If you think about the transaction costs, so let's say you have an agent which needs to query 1,000 hotels to book a room. There's a cost. You pay that cost in Fetch, and you can do the transaction in Fetch, but you don't have to. We don't want to restrict that. You can do it in a stablecoin, because if somebody wants to book a hotel, they don't want to book a hotel with a volatile token, so they could use a stablecoin. That's just the transaction. What you have is the services which the agents provide. To set up an agent, you need a Fetch. You need to run an agent on Fetch Network, to deploy an agent, to open up the peer-to-peer communication, to open up search and discovery. All of that is charged in Fetch.
That Fetch goes to the company. Does that mean you're profitable, or is it burned?
These are not commercial deployments. They are test deployments. And the reason why they're test deployments is it's a new way of doing things, and it's never that quick. So you have to understand that, if you're saying, well, you can run an agent, it's not as simple as saying that, because companies are not going to just move from one to the other, or us as people are not going to just switch from booking a hotel on, let's say, booking.com to booking a hotel via agents. So it takes time. Once that is fully up and running and then we can transact, then that's ultimately going to happen.
What would you say would be the difference, the benefit, if you use Fetch compared to Booking.com, right? Because I'm sure Booking.com might be using some AI in the backend as well to find out what's the best for you and pull all the data from hotels. So what's the difference here?
The difference here is this. If you're a hotel, you currently pay between 8 and 15% to Booking.com as a commission. And what Booking.com does is it connects all the data, huge database. It brings all the data in, and then it actually creates the market. So a hotelier can't control themselves the marketplace. The Bookings.com control the marketplace. It's the same as having a centralized exchange and a decentralized exchange, because that is exactly what the difference is here. So if the centralized exchange is very open and honest, then you're okay, because then no market is being manipulated, you're not controlling the price, but you're still taking a cost of 15% in the middle. Now, if you book it with the agents, and of course, I'm not saying this will happen like today, it might take some time. If you're booking with an agent, you're communicating directly with the supplier of the hotel. You're saving between 8 and 15%. That's really the cost saving. So sometimes you book on booking.com, sometimes you do it on Expedia, and sometimes you do it somewhere else. Sometimes you do direct. In this case, what you need to do is just tell your agent, and the agent gets, just like a human travel agent would have done, goes out, finds you the required service, and you then choose from that service. So it does that for you in a much more efficient way. And the cost is minimal.
Are there any other areas besides, booking hotels or autonomous like self-driving cars that you're looking at to get agents and like facilitate things, lower costs?
So agents are pretty universal. The fabric is pretty universal. If you think about ride-hailing, taxi service like an Uber or a Lyft, again, what Uber and the Lyft does sits in the middle. It connects all the service providers, so all the cabs, to all the people who use it. That's all Uber does. Provides an interface. That's what it does. Yes, there are services like, how can you save your money, make sure you're safe, and all of that. That is what was built on top. But at core, at the heart, it connects the service provider to the consumer. Now, if you have two agents, they could do exactly the same. And they don't need to have a middle person in the middle, like an Uber, which again charges you sometimes more than 20%. So both sides will benefit. They don't need that heavy infrastructure in the middle, so the cost is not there. They don't get controlled by it. Of course, there is value addition from those companies, which is, you've got to make sure that you've done the due diligence on both sides. But that's all okay, because we are taking care of that, because you can have self-sovereign IDs for both agents. The agents communicate. You have escrow contracts, which is, again, these are the things which DeFi is bringing to the world. How do you create the escrow? How do you create the insurances? We don't plan to build them. We just plan to use them to deploy the service. And again, in that case, you can see if an agent does a task for you, agent gets a small fee, nothing in comparison to 10-15%, which a intermediary company costs you.
As you just mentioned, this can apply to literally almost every industry, right? Just removing the middlemen and the high cuts they're taking. And then I'm assuming you will, as you said, partner with, for example, in the case of Uber, websites that could add reviews on top. Who can you trust as a driver? Who can you trust as a passenger? Because you don't want, as a driver, your passenger not showing up, or as a passenger, your driver not showing up.
I'll give you a basic example. So if you're planning to take a job worth $20, and if you're planning to buy a service worth of $20, let's say a taxi cab ride is worth $20, the trick is to escrow both accounts. And you can monitor it because you have the IoT devices, the agents are monitoring your position. So if the taxi didn't turn up to your place, that means they're at fault. You can decide on that. If the taxi went there and you didn't get in it and didn't take a ride, then it's your fault. So you could have very simple mechanism. But our objective is to leave these open for people to actually make a choice. Some people might do it one way, some people might do it another way, and we're quite open. So it's flexible. So you can build your own service.
Are there any companies that do something similar, and what are the differences between you and them?
Is there any company which does exactly the same thing as we're doing? Then the answer is no. At this point in time, nobody is building an agent framework. A lot of people are doing DeFi stuff. A lot of people are doing chains, different chains. There are some similarities between, let's say, IOTA's approach, which is the IoT devices, connecting them, transacting with them. That's a very basic approach where you can connect device, you can query the device, and you can talk with the data. We're not a data marketplace. We're not a data company. We're about providing an actionable prediction, providing actionable service. Our USP is agents and the framework which agents run on. And lastly, the learning network. So agents and other things can do collective learning. Those are the three core things we do. We help you build agents. We provide you the connecting fabric between the agents, and we provide a collective learning environment. So you can actually, from different entities, different stakeholders can collectively learn from it and update machine learning models and AI.
Let's say, like, I own a Tesla and I'd like to experiment. As an individual, could I create an agent on Fetch with my Tesla, and could it talk to other self-driving cars, for example? Or like, would you rather deal with companies and onboard, tons of users at once?
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually. We are going to provide the ability for you to build your own agent. So you will be able to either go on the phone on an app and say, I want to build a car agent, and you'll be able to deploy that. Or you can go online, you can go to our web page, you can say, I want to build an agent, and you can add different modules. You can say, okay, I want a travel agent, I want to have a reinforcement learning skills. I need to add escrow skills to it. You can actually build an agent. You can name your agent. You can add different services to the agent, and then you can press deploy, and you can see it launch on the network. You can see other agents. You can connect with them, and you can negotiate things with them. So that's the facility we'll be providing. So you don't need to be integrated in the car, because I don't think that's the right approach. What we're trying to do is bring it to everybody. So the car,
Okay.
you don't need it for the car as such, because car is intelligent enough. What you need it is to feed that information into the car somehow. And the best way to do it is via mobile.
Is there anything else you'd like to mention specifically about Fetch? Maybe what do you have in mind for like the near future? There could be scenarios with AI when people get kind of scared. Maybe what do you like to say to these people, for example?
What Fetch is building, it's not about trying to take over the world. It's about trying to make things better, and the ability for people to be able to more in control, rather than less in control. So I think what I would say is that I'm more concerned about giving power to three big companies in the world, and that's it. Then I'm less worried about AI taking over the world, because you could see the immediate threat from just big corporates, because they control everything. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because then your service level goes up, things quite improve. But don't forget, that is the way you're getting control. So you do need some ability to do, and some ability to kind of cut out the middleman. So we're on that front. We're not building something which is going to take over the world.
What are some of the challenges you're facing?
The challenges are adoption, and there will be a challenge because we are bringing something quite new to the space. If you look around, and I mean, I'm sure you do plenty of interviews, and plenty of crypto companies. I challenge people to see how many companies they think are doing, building agent systems, multi-agent, autonomous agent systems or AI-based systems. There's only a handful, and Adoption is going to be the key, and that's a key challenge because you're trying to get people to change the way they transact. And crypto's all exactly the same. The momentum is starting to build up now. For a long time, there's a lot of hesitation, there's a lot of resistance. What we're saying is we're going to cut out the intermediary. Some of the biggest companies are intermediaries. I mean, what is an Amazon? Amazon is an intermediary. I'm not saying it has no value. They're providing a hugely beneficial service, but that's not the point. The point is, if you're saying find partnerships with companies who you're trying to take out, that's not going to happen. It would be ridiculous to say that I should partner or Fetch should partner with Uber, for example. We're trying to create technology which negates the existence of Uber. So how would they form a partnership? We need to get the technology in front of people. We need to get it in the hands of people, and that's when we will make a difference.
So, do you think society as a whole might change with crypto, like in general, and maybe with Fetch more specifically? All these big companies, the Amazon, the Uber, that are intermediaries right now, could they disappear and be replaced, by like more interactions facilitated by agents, for example?
That's very possible. In a very short answer, that's very possible. And that's very possible because what would happen is that, one or two industries will pick it up. For example, there's no Google, there's no Amazon, there's none of that in for example, hospitality sector. Yes, Booking.com and Expedia, that's a decade ago, they were probably very big. Now they're starting to shrink because of this current environment. So you need one vertical to actually take it and actually scale with it. And when that happens, then everybody will wake up to it. So it's very possible. I'm not saying everything will be changed. It's just some of these industries don't need the things we think they need, especially where you're interacting via a middle entity to find a service. Again, even Google, the Google search itself needs to change now. It's been the same for a long time. All what we do is search documents, and so it's a very passive search, right? I mean, if I go on Google and I just search for a hotel room, I'll find it, but it's archaic, it's old. I say I need a hotel in this place, park booking.com and Google or apps, and then you go into Google and you just type it, and you've got a list of 10,000 pages. You're going through the pages, you're trying to book it. It's not, this is too old. We shouldn't be doing that. What we should be doing is we should be saying, Google, find me something relevant and book it. But then if you look at Amazon skills, Amazon services, Amazon is trying to do that, but in a very small way. They're trying to do it to order something. But now you have a central entity which doesn't want you to go anywhere else. So again, that's counterproductive as well. So what you need is anybody and everybody should be able to set up an agent. Anybody and everybody should be able to connect to a network of agents. That's really when it changes. It suddenly changes because the interface is the same. You can voice, you can do writing, you can do all of that. And you can make them very intelligent. The intelligence is one thing, connectivity is another. It's like a disruption which happened when we went from no phones to phones, and then we went to mobile phones. Your connectivity just increased exponentially. And that's when new business models come. So if you look at history, most new business models have come about when one form or other of connectivity has changed. So when connectivity changes, things change. When people had no roads, it was very limited economy. Economy grew when the roads came. When the steam engine came, it's connectivity. When phone came, you could access different markets. When internet came, that's again connectivity. So that's next evolution in connectivity is due now, and it could be agent.
We'll see. I'm sure the next few years will be very exciting. So many things happening in the world.
Interesting, for sure. Yeah.
Are there any books that you've read recently, if you have time to read books with all the work you're up to, that you like and that you'd like to recommend?
I must say I don't read enough, but I do read. I think this is my fascination at the moment with new ways, new things, new thinking. So I quite like, there's a book called Life 3.0, which is quite a futuristic book. perhaps very thought-provoking in the technology sector. I quite like that book. I also quite like Sapiens and Homo Deus. That's another two books. Again, it's kind of, we're talking the same thing. It's the evolution of technology, humans, and whatever you want to call it. And I think just to keep sane, I think I quite like, yeah, there's Zero to One, Peter Thiel, his book. Yeah, very simple, very basic, and very direct. So considering restrictions of time and everything, I quite like that book because I think it always, every time I read it, it's very thought provoking in terms of business itself.
Well, thanks a lot. Is there anything else you'd like to say to people, who they're
We'd like
curious, they think?
to, yeah, we'd like to invite developers to kind of trial out this new technology, and I think we'd like them to get involved and start and building new use cases on this technology. It's kind of a intersection between crypto, which is, I mean, when I say crypto, I mean tokenized assets, tokenized different methods, and decentralization. So decentralization is quite the key here, and would like to invite traditional or crypto builders, developers, software developers, and even users to kind of trial out the new way in which this whole space is going to evolve.
So, what programming language do they need to know if they want to build something on Fetch?
We are trying to improve all the time. We have C++, we have JavaScript, Golang is the next module which is coming out. We will be able to do some very basic drag and drop scratch time. So it's right from the lowest scale to C++, which is a lot more difficult to write test. We're open to all, and we're inviting people to build SDKs in different languages so that we can open it up for more and more people.
Nice, very nice. There you go. Links in the description if you're a dev and you want to build something cool. Thanks a lot for your time, Humayun. Really looking forward maybe to chat again in 3 or 6 months when the mainnet's live and there are more agents and we can see where the network is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you
Thanks
for
a
your
lot.
time.
Yep. See you.
Okay.